You're listening to the Infinite Banking Mastery Podcast. Did you know that you could build a tax-free pool of wealth that's liquid and accessible all your life while building your retirement nest egg? Gain full control of your financial future and stop relying on the government and banks. The wealthy have already discovered this wealth-building secret. Now it's your turn to get financially secure without following the conventional wisdom that keeps you in debt to banks. Now here's your host, Valerie LaRocque.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Hope that you're all doing great. We are now less than 2 weeks away from Christmas, and I still have so much to do. It just feels faster and faster every year. As mentioned before, this is my favorite time of year, so I try to cherish and soak in all the moments, and I hope you are too. It just goes so fast. I once had this neighbor who said it really simply and made a lot of sense when she said, your years fly by similar to the age that you are. So for example, a person age 50, it would feel like you're going 50 miles an hour through life. And the older you get, the faster you're going each year. And I agree. I think that's what it feels like. It just feels faster and faster. I can see now why people put their Christmas decorations and everything. It seems like it's out earlier and earlier every year. And that's because there's not enough time. Before you know it, it's already passed. So I hope that you're just enjoying everything the holiday season brings. And so now we'll go ahead and get into today's episode, which we are back to Becoming Your Own Banker, the book that Nelson Nash wrote. And we are going to cover a couple of problems that Nelson Nash calls the human problems. The first one being Parkinson's law. Now, Parkinson's law was thought up by C. Northcote Parkinson, who was a lecturer and economist. And he said, or the law says, work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. What he's saying is, if a person is given a week to complete a task, they're likely to do it on the last day. They're going to try to wait and procrastinate until the very last minute to do that task. For example, if they have a month, they have a whole month to get a task done, they are going to wait till probably the 30th day. Now, I'm sure some of you out there are super awesome rock stars who get things done right away and get things out of the way first, but a lot of people are procrastinators and wait till the last day. Now, I actually have a good story, a good example of Parkinson's law in action. Back when I was in school at the University of Washington, and at the time, I had already purchased the business from my employer. I was a junior at the school, and I'd already purchased the coffee business that I had worked for from my employer. And I thought, okay, well, this business was going to have to be relocated because they were demolishing the entire parking lot. It was a little coffee stand in front of a Safeway, and they were going to demolish the parking lot. And so we had to move the business, but they said, well, we're just going to close early because we don't want to deal with that. So I went ahead and bought it at that time thinking, well, I'll try out business ownership. I'll just own it until they make me leave and I'll see what it's like. So I had this business and the construction had started, and I quickly realized why they were getting out of that business or trying to sell it or close it. And it's because much less customers were coming by, being that the construction area with all the demolition was coming into a real dust factory. It was super dirty and dusty, dirt flying around. Thankfully, the construction workers buy a lot of coffee. So we were okay, but business did slow down. So I, during that time, had 4 classes to try and finish up my degree at the UW. So I had these 4 classes all in 2 days of the week so that I could, on 2 of those days, I would go in, open my coffee stand, then I'd go to school. And then the other days of the week, I would go in, open my coffee stand, and then go work somewhere else because I was not making enough money in my own coffee stand. So I had this crazy schedule, and I kind of told you the story so you would understand why, when I was assigned this 30-page paper from school, why I was so delayed in getting it done. I was just working my buns off, working my business, working at another location as well to be able to pay. I was also paying my way through the UW as I was attending, so I needed to be working. So then I had this 30-page paper that was due, and I had acquired like 5 books because you had to do the research and we couldn't just easily Google it or have AI write it for us. We had to go and research. I'm sure most of you all remember the days of having to study through books and look for your information in books. And so I had 5 different books, was looking for all the information I needed to write this paper. And so I had started the process, but the day came and now the paper is due tomorrow. Believe it or not, I had not yet even started that paper. So I got my books and was just deep diving into everything and starting to write this paper. And I thought, hopefully I can just whip it out. Well, I could not whip it out, and I had to work through the night 100%. So I just worked all night long. I did not sleep at all. And then I had to ask my friend and roommate who lived with me and also worked for me at the time. I asked her to cover my shift because I just had to keep right on typing and finishing this paper. It was the first time, I would say maybe the only time, where I was dreaming with my eyes open. I actually felt like I was dreaming while my eyes were open. So funny and strange. So that is an extreme example of Parkinson's law, waiting till the very last minute. Though I will say sometimes I've waited till the last minute, but I always get everything done. It is a common human problem where we just want to wait and we think, oh, no problem, we'll wait. We have plenty of time. Before you know it, you are out of time. Another thing that Parkinson's law says is that a luxury once enjoyed becomes a necessity. I mean, yes, for sure, of course. I'm sure you can think of something that you used to not have that you now cannot live without. I'm sure it's quite possible to live without that thing, but you just don't want to. It just becomes a necessity. A few examples, one of them might be a microwave. Everyone is so accustomed to the microwave. It just heats everything up so fast, and it's become a staple in every household. Now, I actually have gotten rid of my microwave. I've used a toaster oven now, and even though I love the toaster oven, I still do sometimes miss the convenience of heating food up really super fast. So I'm sure many people would now consider it a necessity. Or what about your refrigerator, your car, plumbing, your cell phone, even brewed coffee? Like, we can't go backwards and not have brewed coffee anymore. Nelson in the book gives an example of air conditioning. Who would want to be in the South without air conditioning? I mean, can you even imagine living without one of these things? Truly, any new convenience that you try is likely to become a necessity for you. And then Parkinson's adds, expenses rise to meet income. Well, I'm sure you've experienced that as well. Have you ever received a raise or a bonus or just an increase in income? And at the end of the year, you wonder, where did all that money go? I thought I had a raise. You were living fine, you were living comfortably before, or you were used to living off of the income that you had. And then you get this raise and you think, oh, I'm going to save this money. I'm going to do something great with this money. I have all these plans. And then before you know it, you don't feel like there is any extra money and you're wondering where it all went. That's because it's just so common for all of your expenses to all of a sudden rise and meet your income. You just see things you want or feel like you need, and then that money just slips right through your fingers. When we have higher income, our definition of necessities changes along with our income. This naturally makes it harder to get ahead. So we need to be able to overcome Parkinson's law, and we need to work at overcoming it every single day. And likely you will need to overcome Parkinson's law at least a little in the beginning when starting an infinite banking plan, because you're going to need to put money aside, put money into your policy first before you have an opportunity to turn around and use and access those funds, or at least all of those funds. Now, the next law that Nelson covers in the human problems section is called Willie Sutton's law. This law basically states wherever wealth is accumulated, someone will try to steal it. Now, Willie Sutton was actually a bank robber and said that he continued to rob banks because, quote, that's where they keep the money. So Nelson uses this section to talk about who he thinks is the biggest thief in the world. Any guesses? Nelson shares some quotes from an essay titled The Law by Frederick Bastiat from back in the early 1800s to help clarify his point. Now, I've actually read this book, The Law, and I did think it was an excellent book. And it's interesting because Frederick wrote it so long ago and in France. And yet it amazed me how everything he was talking about very much pertained to current times in the US. So Bastiat called what he was seeing in his time, he called it legal plunder, which I think are actually some pretty great words to use, how to explain maybe what the IRS is doing. The way Bastiat explains it is, But how is this legal plunder to be identified? Quite simply, see if the law takes from some persons what belongs to them and gives it to other persons to whom it does not belong. See if the law benefits one citizen at the expense of another by doing what the citizen himself cannot do without committing a crime. Now, what he's saying is if a person went and took someone else's money, robbed them, of course they would be put in jail. They would be in trouble by the law. But how come the government can do the same thing and it's not considered wrong? So I've used this example after reading that book. I kind of tried to explain it to someone and I said, well, it's kind of like if you have 3 televisions in your house and someone comes over and says, hey, you have 3 TVs and your neighbor doesn't have any. And your neighbor doesn't do the same work as you, doesn't work in the same way as you, and he can't afford a TV, so he needs one. And so you need to give him one of yours. So we're going to go ahead and take one of your TVs and give it to your neighbor because they don't have one. And so you should share. You should give him something that you worked hard for and you earned and you purchased. You just need to give it over to your neighbor. Now, I don't think many people would be okay with this. Now, if somebody came in and robbed your TV, they would go to jail. They can't just come in and take your stuff. At least most people in most states would go to jail. I do live in Washington where the law's a little relaxed here. Sometimes you might go to jail, maybe get out the same day or so, but you're supposed to be in trouble if you go in and steal something from somebody's home. In all states, it is considered a crime to go in and steal something from somebody's home. And so if that is considered a crime, would it be okay for the government to do the same thing? I mean, if a government official walked over and said you need to give some of your property to someone else because they need it more than you, I feel like you would think of that as a crime. Like, why you can't just come in and just take my stuff because the neighbor needs a TV and you think that they need one more than I need the 3 that I purchased. And so I like to use that example because it just sounds so silly having somebody come in and grab something tangible that is yours, when of course you won't think that's okay. But that is essentially what the government is doing. They're taking from you and they're giving it to someone else who didn't work for or earn what you have. And so Nelson goes on to say that they take your money in the form of taxes. They went ahead and turned around and then created a solution to the problem when they created retirement plans, things like 401ks, IRAs. So what he's saying is they tax you, they take your money, and then they went and invented a way for you to be able to keep more of your money to look like they're trying to help you. But they are offering this minimal help from a problem that they created. Not to mention, it's actually a mirage because that money is still taxable. It'll be taxable in the future at some mystery tax rate. And with the skyrocketing deficit, their need for higher taxes only increases as the years go by. So they are more likely than ever to need more money when you hit your retirement years and only have so much money to live off of for the rest of your retired life. So if you have the bulk of your retirement savings in vehicles like 401ks, IRAs, pension plans, or qualified plans, then those accounts have an added risk. They aren't just at risk in the market. They aren't just at risk of the market volatility throughout your life, but they also have tax rate risk, the risk of paying more in taxes at the time that you need that money in the future. Your future tax rate is just a big fat question mark. And most likely today, your taxes are on sale because they are in one of the lowest tax brackets in our history. And so when you reach your retirement years, it's possible that the government could say, hey, we have a really large deficit. It's just been going up over the years. And we want to make sure Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid continue to pay our elderly for those who are expecting that benefit. And so we're just going to need to take more of your taxes. I know you were in a smaller tax bracket or maybe expecting to be in a smaller tax bracket or a lower tax bracket when you retired, but we're actually going to need 50% now. So I'm sorry that you're age 70 and you have $1 million in your 401k account and you thought you got to use 800,000 of it, but actually you're only going to get to keep 500,000 because we need more of that money in taxes. That is the danger. And that is one of the most powerful reasons for storing at least some of your savings dollars in whole life contracts. Because as you know, you're able to access those funds and the earnings on those funds income tax-free your whole life. Of course, so long as your policy, your contract was created and built appropriately. So if you're feeling ready to get your own properly designed whole life contract and would like to partner with me as your advisor, feel free to reach out to me at Valerie@alphaomegawealth.com. You also can check out my website, which is infinitebankingnorthwest.com. You can also follow me. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, Infinite Banking Mastery. You can follow me there. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Again, I hope you're enjoying the holiday season, and I hope you have a great week. I will talk to you next time. Take care.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.